For over 237 years, the United States has been a democratic republic guided by a system of checks and balances that was intentionally designed to protect the fundamental principles of liberty. Founding Father Thomas Paine described liberty in part as the power to do everything that does not interfere with the rights of others. In that time, the Constitution has stood as the bedrock of American governance, ensuring that no single entity or branch of government becomes too powerful. In 1788, James Madison wrote Federalist 51, which was titled, "The structure of the government must furnish the proper checks and balances between the different departments." One of the most notable quotes within Federalist 51 is where Madison states, "It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices," speaking of checks and balances, "should be necessary to control the abuses of government." Recent actions by current President Donald Trump have raised concerns about whether these systems are being undermined. Specifically, Trump's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 has prompted questions about the balance of power between the executive branch, the judiciary, and potentially the Constitution itself. Which begs the question, are we in a constitutional crisis, or is it just time for a constitutional upgrade? I'm Legally Hype, and this is TSR Newz. The United States Constitution, written in 1787, established a government with three co-equal branches. The legislative branch, consisting of the House and the Senate, which makes the laws, the executive branch, led by the president, who is responsible for enforcing the laws, and the judicial branch, which includes the Supreme Court, tasked with interpreting the laws. The founders deliberately designed these separate branches to create a system of checks and balances in order to prevent the concentration of power in any one branch of government. They feared a system in which power was too centralized, like that of the king that they broke away from, would lead to arbitrary rule and oppression. Despite this clear intent, the balance of power between the three branches has often been tested throughout American history. Recently, President Donald Trump has drawn attention to this delicate balance by invoking the Alien Enemies Act, a law dating back to 1798 that allows the president to deport or detain foreign nationals believed to be engaged in hostile activities. Trump used this law for the first time since World War II to target individuals allegedly linked to a Venezuelan gang as part of what this administration calls a mandate by the American people to crack down on immigration in this country. Well, a federal judge quickly issued an injunction against the deportations, questioning the legality of Trump's actions. It remains unclear whether the Trump administration complied with that order or defied it, but regardless, Trump was unhappy with the ruling and called for the judge to be impeached, going as far as accusing the judge of being rogue and using his activism to prevent Trump from exercising the executive power. So then, Trump's senior advisor, Stephen Miller, claimed the federal judge did not have jurisdiction to challenge the president's actions, suggesting that the executive branch, under Trump's leadership, would continue its course regardless of judicial interference. This development raises critical questions about the power of the executive branch and its relationship with the judiciary. Trump's controversial views on executive power, specifically his interpretation of what's known as unitary executive theory, seeks to centralize greater control within the White House. Advocates for this theory believe that the president should have near unilateral authority over all executive branch functions, undermining the role of both Congress and the courts, which clearly defies the intent of the founding fathers. But this is not the only way Trump's actions are challenging constitutional norms. In recent weeks, former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon, who plays a key role in shaping Trump's MAGA agenda, suggested that Trump may run for a third term in 2028. Now, let's be clear. Currently, the 22nd Amendment, which was ratified in 1951, prohibits any president from being elected more than twice. The 22nd Amendment was enacted in response to Franklin D. Roosevelt's 4 terms in office. And again, it restricts presidents to 2 elected terms. Now, if a person has served more than 2 years of another president's term, such as a vice president who ascends to the presidency, then they can only be elected for 1 more term. However, Bannon is suggesting that efforts are underway to bypass this restriction. Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, a Republican, has even proposed an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to allow a president to be elected more than twice. However, passing such an amendment would require 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate, along with ratification by 38 states. But in the meantime, the question remains, will America uphold the checks and balances that have defined its democracy for over 2 centuries? Or will the actions of figures like Donald Trump and his allies push the nation towards a constitutional crisis? Only time will tell. But if we are facing a constitutional crisis, could this have all been avoided? Founding Father Thomas Jefferson, one of the main authors of the Declaration of Independence, believed that the Constitution should be rewritten every 19 to 20 years, arguing that laws must evolve alongside society. Jefferson warned that enforcing a static constitution over time would become an act of force, not rightful governance. He envisioned a system of governance that adapted to the progress of human understanding. While Jefferson's proposal never became reality, the last amendment to the Constitution was ratified on May 7, 1992, the 27th Amendment, which dealt with congressional pay raises. Remarkably, it took over 200 years to pass. But whether the Constitution should be amended to allow a third presidential term or to give the president greater control over government is a matter of deep debate. As we move forward, it's clear that the U.S. Constitution faces significant tests. The question remains, though, are we truly in a constitutional crisis, or is it just time for a constitutional change? Join us on Read the Room this Tuesday night on TikTok at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll debate this very issue.